We live in interesting times. For the headlines. The historic impeachment battle in the House of Representatives entered a new phase as 4 of the nation's top constitutional law professors testified about whether President Trump should face a trial in the Senate. A U.S. Navy sailor has shot 3 civilians, killing 2 of them before taking his own life at the historic military base at Pearl Harbor. Samoa enters a 2-day lockdown to carry out an unprecedented mass vaccination drive aimed at containing a devastating measles epidemic that has killed dozens of children. And NASA's Parker Solar Probe, having survived its closest encounter so far with the sun, has sent back a spectacular trove of data on its corona, the super hot outer edge of its atmosphere, according to scientists. Mga Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world, thank you very much for joining us. And now to the news. First, in the Philippines, the number of people killed by Typhoon Kammuri's pounding of the Philippines this week has hit 13, according to officials on Thursday, as authorities confirmed reports of storm-related deaths. Kammuri's fierce winds toppled trees and flattened flimsy homes across a swath of the nation's north on Tuesday and forced a rare 12-hour shutdown of Manila's International Airport. Authorities said 1 person had drowned while 3 died after being hit by trees and flying objects. Disaster officials didn't offer details on how the other victims died, but local police reports indicated some may have drowned or been crushed by trees. Mark Timbal, spokesman for the National Disaster Agency, said no new bodies have been found, but the death toll could still rise as reports on the ground are verified. Hundreds of thousands of people living in exposed low-lying areas were evacuated from their homes before Kammuri made landfall late Monday, which authorities said had saved lives. Still, the storm damaged 135 schools and destroyed nearly 1,200 homes, with crop damage in the hardest hit areas estimated to reach nearly $16 million. Ninoy Aquino International Airport was closed half of Tuesday as a precaution, affecting over 500 flights, while roughly half the day's program at the Southeast Asian Games hosted by Manila and nearby cities had to be postponed. To Hawaii now, U.S. Rear Admiral Robert Chadwick said 2 civilian shipyard workers were killed in the Pearl Harbor Naval Base shooting, and 1 civilian is in a stable condition in hospital. Now, the shooter, who was identified as an active duty sailor, also died by an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. Take a look.
I can report that Joint Base security personnel did respond to the report of an active shooter today in the vicinity of Dry Dock 2 in the Naval Shipyard. I can confirm that there were 3 shooting victims. We have confirmed that 2 are deceased. 1 is in stable condition in a local hospital. I can also report the shooter, who has tentatively been identified as an active duty sailor assigned to USS Columbia, SSN 771, is also deceased by an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. The shooter is deceased, as well as 2 of the civilian shipyard workers. The 3rd civilian shipyard worker is in stable condition in a local hospital. We have no indication yet whether they were targeted or if it was a random shooting.
The shooting took place near the south entrance of the sprawling base located on the southern shore of Oahu. The base hosts both the Navy and Air Force. The incident unfolded 3 days before the 78th anniversary of the 1941 Japanese surprise attack on Pearl Harbor that left 2,403 U.S. service members dead.
Do you hear me? Do you hear me?
The last time a mass shooting took place in Hawaii was 20 years ago during the so-called Xerox murders that resulted in 7 employees being killed. Now, earlier today, the Aloha State encountered a similar horror again, this time inside the military base at Pearl Harbor. Ron Hamilton has the details.
It's been more than 20 years since Hawaii has experienced a mass shooting incident. But today, residents and visitors alike were shocked to hear that a Pearl Harbor sailor had shot 3 people before turning the gun on himself. At around 2:30 local time, a U.S. Navy sailor entered the Pearl Harbor Navy shipyard and shot 3 civilian men before taking his own life. 2 of the victims were taken to area hospitals where they were later pronounced dead. The 3rd victim, age 36, was taken to Queens Medical Center in Honolulu, where he's under guarded condition. Because the shooting took place inside a military installation, authorities had to close several gates, preventing everyone from entering and exiting, as well as containing the situation to prevent any threats from the outside. First responders from within the base, as well as counterparts from the city and state, arrived at the scene. At about 3:35 p.m., military and civilian personnel in Hawaii received alerts from the Department of Defense on their phones, computers, and even on social media. Announcements and information were also heard through PA systems.
This is the Department of Defense Alert Mass Notification System. Here is your message. Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hook'em security forces have responded to a reported shooting at the Pearl Harbor Naval Shipyard. The incident occurred at approximately 2:30 p.m. Due to the ongoing security incident, access/gates to JBPHH are closed. We will update when we have further information.
The gates were finally opened at about 4 p.m. According to the commander of Navy Region Hawaii, the alleged gunman was assigned to the submarine USS Columbia, and all 3 victims were employees of the shipyard. As of this report, neither the identities of the victims, the weapon used, nor the motive for the shooting have yet been disclosed. Honolulu resident Nicole shares her first-hand account on today's tragic event.
I was on Ford Island at the USS Battleship Missouri when I heard about the incident. So we heard this alarm go off, an alarm that I've actually not heard before, and we were being ushered and rushed onto the Battleship Missouri to take cover. My initial reaction was of confusion, and I didn't really know what was happening. So apparently there was the alarm was going off and there was an announcement, but because we were on the base, helicopters were flying over and we couldn't really hear the announcements, so it was just the workers on the Battleship Missouri who were telling us to get on the ship, and we were just following instructions, actually not knowing why we were getting on the ship. The reaction of the people around me were of confusion, similar to me. Most of the people were tourists, and we just weren't sure what was happening. And it wasn't until we got onto the ship that we were told that there was an incident on the base, and that it was a lockdown, and we were safe on the ship, and we had to stay put until otherwise told. We were told that we were going to be there for a while and just to sit and relax, and they handed out water and were very helpful and kind and reassured us that everything was okay. Everyone was calm, and there were a lot of children on the battleship, and I don't think they really understood what was happening, thankfully. And people were getting news off social media about what was happening, and that's how we actually first found out of what actually was happening, because we weren't getting information from the workers. It took us a while to get off Ford Island. There was traffic backed all the way up. And then once we got off the base, the traffic on the freeway was your typical rush hour traffic, plus I guess everyone that would normally leave earlier was leaving all at the same time. So it was just unfortunate timing that everyone was leaving the base at peak hour traffic. So it took a while to get home, but I was glad to get home and be safe. after what happened today, I still feel like Hawaii is a very safe place to live and work. You know, these incidents do not happen very frequently, and the incident today happened on a base where normally I'm hardly ever on a base. Today was just a very unlucky situation to be that close. So I don't think I've lost my confidence in Hawaii's safety. I think it has one of the strictest, if not the strictest, gun laws in the USA.
Additional security members can be expected not only on Pearl Harbor Hickam, but also in other military bases throughout the Aloha State. Reporting from Honolulu, Hawaii, this is Ron Hamilton with Eagle News. I am one with 25.
Samoa entered a two-day lockdown on Thursday as authorities launched an unprecedented mass vaccination campaign to contain a deadly measles outbreak that has devastated the Pacific Island nation. Officials ordered all businesses and non-essential government services to close, shut down inter-island ferry services, and told private cars to keep off the roads. Residents were advised to stay in their homes and display a red flag if they were not yet immunized, as hundreds of vaccination teams fanned across the nation of 200,000 in the early hours of the morning. The operation, carried out under emergency powers invoked as the epidemic took hold last month, is a desperate bid to halt an inexorably rising death toll that reached 62 on Thursday, most of them young children. Children are the most vulnerable to measles, which typically causes a rash and fever, but it can also lead to brain damage and death. The latest figures showed that 54 of the 62 dead were aged 4 or less, and infants account for most of the 4,217 cases recorded since the outbreak began in mid-October. There have also been measles epidemics in neighboring Fiji and Tonga, but higher immunization rates mean they've been more easily contained with no fatalities. Authorities said the aim of this week's two-day drive was to push the rate above 90%, which should help curb the current outbreak and stop future epidemics. Australian bushfires have caused unprecedented pollution in Sydney and along the country's east coast, according to officials, with smoke and dust burning residents' eyes and prompting a spike in respiratory complaints. Now, hundreds of bushfires have already burnt out of control since September, up and down the eastern seaboard, blanketing cities from Sydney to Brisbane in smoke for weeks on end. The extent of the crisis was made clear on Thursday, with the New South Wales Department of Environment declaring bushfires and dust had caused some of the highest air pollution ever seen in Australia. New South Wales Rural Fire Service said more than a dozen fires were burning near Sydney on Thursday, including 3 that carried an emergency warning. For 3 weeks, the city has seen almost daily air quality warnings. Bushfires are common in Australia, but scientists say this year's season has come earlier and with more intensity due to a prolonged drought fueled by climate change. And staying in Australia, 2 custom agents have been charged in connection with Australia's largest ever offshore seizure of the drug ice, a bust worth a record $840 million, according to police. Australian Border Force agents in April found 1.6 tons of methamphetamine and 37 kilograms of heroin in vacuum-sealed packages hidden inside stereo speakers shipped from Thailand to Melbourne. Now, police arrested 2 men and a woman in their late 30s on Wednesday following raids in suburban Melbourne, Australia's second largest. Australian Federal Police Deputy Commissioner Neil Gagan said the 2 custom agents were not government employees but private contractors. He said, quote, they used their position to circumvent the border controls that exist within Australia. Now, police said they were cooperating with authorities in Thailand where an investigation was ongoing. Thousands of demonstrators march at the Vieux-Port or Old Port in Marseille to protest the pension reforms the French government is determined to push through. Take a look. A nationwide strike shut down public transport, schools, and other services across France on Thursday as unions kicked off an open-ended strike against President Emmanuel Macron's plans for a universal pension system they say will force millions of people to work longer. Union leaders have vowed to keep up their protests unless President Macron drops the pension overhaul, the latest move in the centrist president's push to reform wide swaths of the French economy. Around 50% of high-speed TGV trains as well as regional lines were cancelled, and Air France has axed 30% of domestic flights and 15% of short-haul international routes. In Paris, 11 of the 16 metro lines were shut down and others had just bare-bones service during the morning rush hour, and the Eiffel Tower turned away tourists because of the strike. President Macron wants to implement a universal retirement system that would do away with 42 special regimes for sectors ranging from rail and energy workers to lawyers and Paris Opera employees, which often grant workers higher pensions or early retirement. But unions say the changes would effectively require millions of private sector workers to work beyond the legal retirement age of 62 if they want to receive the full pension they have been promised. Prime Minister Edouard Philippe, who has acknowledged French workers will gradually have to work longer, is set to unveil the details of the reform on December 12. Protesters in Lebanon blocked the Ring Bridge, a key road in the capital Beirut, during continued demonstrations against corruption and the political class. Take a look. About 200 demonstrators marched on the Ring Bridge to protest against Lebanon's outgoing Prime Minister Saad Hariri's decision to back businessman Samir Khatib to replace him. Riot police prevented the protesters from blocking the highway while dozens of the protesters sat down on the ground and chanted anti-government slogans. Now, Hariri said on Tuesday he supports the nomination of the prominent contractor to become the country's next premier, a move that will likely pave the way for the formation of a new cabinet amid a severe economic and financial hardships for the country. Last week, Hariri withdrew his candidacy for the premiership, saying he hoped to clear the way for a solution to the political impasse amid nearly 8 weeks of anti-government protests. Women in Chile's capital gathered to sing a song against gender violence. The song, which has gone viral, originated in this country in the midst of the ongoing social crisis. Now, women of all ages from around Santiago, dressed in black and wearing red scarves and blindfolds, converge on the sporting venue in the early evening after a call out on social media networks. The fault is not with me, nor where I was, nor how I was dressed. The rapist is you, the group sang, stomping their feet and waving their arms in a choreographed routine that has in recent weeks been staged around the country and around the world. Similar performances have been staged by women as far away as Paris, Barcelona, and even Mexico City. First created by the collective Las Tesis, based in the Chilean seaside town of Valparaiso, the performance began to be emulated after reports of police violence against women and as countrywide demonstrations against the government gained steam. More than 3,500 women were killed across Latin America and the Caribbean in acts of gender-based violence last year, according to United Nations data. And thousands of protesters took part in anti-government demonstrators in Colombia's capital, Bogota, during the country's third general strike in 2 weeks.
Estoy apoyando el paro por 4 razones: en contra de la reforma laboral, de la reforma pensional y de la reforma tributaria, y a favor de los derechos de los animales y en contra del fracking.
Now, strike leaders say they intend to maintain pressure on right-wing President Ivan Duque's government after brushing aside his appeals to cancel the strike on the grounds its effects were crippling the economy. Under fire for his economic policies and corruption in the country, President Duque launched a national dialogue with mayors and other officials 10 days ago. The strike committee has presented President Duque with a list of 13 demands, including the withdrawal of his proposed tax reforms and full compliance with the 2016 peace deal with FARC guerrillas. Among them is a call to dismantle the feared ESMAD riot police, widely criticized for its heavy-handed response to protesters. And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
In Good Shape, your weekly health show on DW that covers many aspects of healthcare. We look at what's new in medical treatment, nutrition, fitness, and beauty. We discuss these topics in depth with specialists.
Hey guys, Marie here. I'm in Denver, Colorado, the Mile High City. Denver got its nickname the Mile High due to its elevation being 1 mile or 5,280 feet above sea level. For more fun facts such as this, tune in to Digital Nest on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Digital Nest EBC, to catch all the episodes right at your fingertips. I'm Marie Dumaya, EBC Colorado correspondent. I'm 1-25.
Ambassadors from Belgium, Estonia, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, and Poland issued a statement condemning the continued testing of ballistic missiles by the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Take a look.
The DPKRA has conducted 13 sets of ballistic missile launches since May and continued to operate its nuclear program. We condemn these provocative actions. They undermine regional security and stability, as well as international peace and security, and are in clear violation of unanimously adopted UN Security Council resolutions. We also condemn the recent threats made by DPKRA to partners in the region and beyond. We continue to urge the DPKRA to engage in good faith in meaningful negotiations with the United States aimed at denuclearization and to take concrete steps to abandoning all weapons of mass destruction and ballistic missile programs in a complete, verifiable and irreversible manner.
Meanwhile, North Korea warned that if the United States used military force against Pyongyang, it would take prompt corresponding actions at any level, in response to comments by U.S. President Donald Trump. President Trump on Tuesday indicated that military action was still possible when he was asked about North Korea on the sidelines of a NATO summit in Britain on Tuesday. He definitely likes sending rockets up, doesn't he? That's why I call him Rocket Man. President Trump said of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. We have the most powerful military we've ever had, and we're by far the most powerful country in the world. And hopefully we don't have to use it, but if we do, we'll use it. If we have to, we'll do it, President Trump added. Now, responding on Wednesday, Pak Jong-chon, chief of the General Staff of the Korean People's Army, said he was greatly disappointed by President Trump's comments. The official KCNA news agency said. He added that the use of armed forces is not the privilege of the U.S. only. He said if the U.S. uses any armed forces against the DPRK, we will also take prompt corresponding actions at any level, he added, using the initials of North Korea's official name. In other news, 3 constitutional experts bolstered Democrats' efforts to impeach President Trump by saying the president's actions seeking foreign interference in U.S. elections are grounds for removal as the inquiry kicked off into a new phase in Congress. But reflecting the Washington political divide, a 4th expert strongly dissented, saying there was woefully inadequate evidence that President Trump committed high crimes and misdemeanors necessary for impeachment. Take a look.
President Trump has committed impeachable high crimes and misdemeanors by corruptly abusing the office of the presidency. Specifically, President Trump has abused his office by corruptly soliciting President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine to announce investigations of his political rivals in order to gain personal advantage, including in the 2020 presidential election.
Indeed, as I want to explain in my testimony, drawing a foreign government into our elections is an especially serious abuse of power because it undermines democracy itself. Our Constitution begins with the words, "We the people," for a reason.
If Congress fails to impeach here, then the impeachment process has lost all meaning. And along with that, our Constitution's carefully crafted safeguards against the establishment of a king on American soil. And therefore, I stand with the Constitution, and I stand with the framers who were committed to ensure that no one is above the law.
Meanwhile, the 4th expert, Professor Jonathan Turley of George Washington University Law School, the only one chosen by Republicans, had a very different assessment. Turley, who also testified during Bill Clinton's impeachment in 1998, argued there's no evidence that Trump acted with a corrupt intent required for obstruction of justice. Let's listen in.
And what we leave in the wake of this scandal will shape our democracy for generations to come. I'm concerned about lowering impeachment standards to fit a paucity of evidence and an abundance of anger. I believe this impeachment not only fails to satisfy the standard of past impeachments, but would create a dangerous precedent for future impeachments.
Meanwhile, constitutional law professor Pamela Karlan invoked Barron Trump, the son of President Trump and Melania Trump, to demonstrate how the Constitution imposes distinctions between a monarch's power and that of a president. Take a look. The Constitution says there can be no titles of nobility, Karlan told lawmakers during the House Judiciary Committee's first hearing on impeachment, which featured 4 constitutional scholars. So while the president can name his son Barron, he can't make him a baron. Now, the pun led to chuckles in the congressional hearing room, but First Lady Melania Trump made clear it was no laughing matter. A minor child deserves privacy and should be kept out of politics, the First Lady tweeted shortly afterwards. Pamela Karlan, you should be ashamed of your very angry and obviously biased public pandering and using a child to do it. President Trump retweeted his wife's message to 67 million followers. As the row snowballed, Karlan quickly tried to stem the damage by expressing her regret. She said, "I want to apologize for what I said earlier about the president's son." She told the panel, "It was wrong of me to do that," she said, before adding that she also wished the president would apologize, obviously, for the things that he's done that's wrong. Now, for years, members of both political parties have agreed that the minor children of U.S. politicians, particularly presidents, are off limits. Now, during the hearing, Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz snapped at Karlan, telling her that invoking Trump's son does not lend credibility, quote, to your argument. It makes you look mean. Now, U.S. President Donald Trump loves to dominate an international summit with impromptu, rambling press briefings that leave his fellow world leaders struggling to stick to their agenda. Take a look. And at this week's NATO summit in London, their bemusement became embarrassingly public when video emerged of 4 of President Trump's counterparts mocking his lengthy interventions. Never one to take a slight lying down, President Trump responded by reviving his feud with Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, branding him two-faced over his leading role in the exchange. Take a look.
Well, he's two-faced.
Do you think that Germany is too naive?
And honestly, with Trudeau, he's a nice guy. I find him to be a very nice guy. But, you know, the truth is that I called him out on the fact that he's not paying 2%. And I guess he's not very happy about it. I mean, you were there, a couple of you were there. And
now, none of the world leaders seemed to realize the conversation was being recorded, but the video played directly into Mr. Trump's own fixation with rival leaders laughing at him or at the United States.
We were all surprised and I think pleased to learn that the next G7 will be at Camp David. I think that was an unscheduled announcement, and I think everyone's team, every different leader has teams who every now and then have their jaws drop at unscheduled surprises, like that video itself, for example. The relationship we have with the United States is an extraordinarily important and effective one. We have renegotiated NAFTA to be a better deal for Canadians, for Americans, and for Mexicans. We're moving forward on military collaborations. We're working together on the world stage on a broad range of things. And the relationship between Canada and the United States is extremely strong. And I have a very good relationship with President Trump and his team.
Now, in a final irony, President Trump canceled his scheduled press conference at the end of the summit, concluding not unreasonably that he had already said all he had to say during his ad hoc Q&As. By Wednesday afternoon, some of the participants were seeking to distance themselves from the perceived criticism of President Trump. During a news conference, Prime Minister Boris Johnson claimed ignorance of the widely circulated video.
You've been pictured in this Buckingham Palace reception with Prime Minister Trudeau and others apparently having a joke, maybe at Mr. Trump's expense. Do you not take President Trump seriously?
No. That's complete nonsense, and I don't know where that's come from.
In other news, 14 people remain missing from a fire that claimed a student's life in Ukraine's southern port city of Odessa, according to President Volodymyr Zelensky. Now, the fire broke out in a college building in central Odessa on Wednesday, killing a 16-year-old female student and injuring 27 others. The blaze had been contained by Thursday morning, but dozens of firefighters were still combing through the partly destroyed walls of the 6-story building. Zelensky wrote in a Facebook post, "We all hope that of the 14 missing people, as many as possible will be found safe and sound, but I do not want to deceive anyone. There may be more victims." 7 firefighters were among the injured and 5 people were in a serious condition. The authorities have opened a probe into the blaze. The mayor of Odessa said the city would observe 2 days of mourning on Thursday and Friday. In other news, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Attorney General Keith Ellison announced a lawsuit against Juul for what they call deception over its vaping products, joining Washington, D.C., New York, and California in suing the United States' largest electronic cigarette manufacturer.
And today, I'm announcing, with all of us up here, that we're using the power of the Minnesota Attorney General's office to bring a lawsuit against Juul Labs on behalf of the state and the people of Minnesota. They have deceived and misled Minnesota consumers of all ages, created a public nuisance, and especially harmed our young people. Juul is by far the dominant e-cigarette manufacturer in America, and it's growing fast. The rise in e-cigarette use among our youth in a few short years has erased the last 10 years of gains we made in fighting youth tobacco use.
They knew exactly what they were doing. They studied to know exactly what they were doing. They knew the harm they were doing, and they continued to do it for that simple reason. We're going to get their research, and I'll damn sure guarantee you they had conversations talking about how do we get kids like Will addicted? How do we make sure Claire can't get off this? Because guess what? These kids aren't smoking cigarettes anymore.
Juul Labs, which is facing a growing number of state and federal investigations into its marketing and sales, is about one-third owned by tobacco giant Altria, the maker of Marlboro and other popular brands. Juul issued a statement saying it's working cooperatively with attorneys general, regulators, and other stakeholders to prevent underage use of its products and to switch adult smokers away from conventional cigarettes. The company also said it recently stopped accepting orders for mint-flavored pods in the U.S. and suspended all its broadcast, print, and digital product advertising in the country. In other news, NASA's Parker Solar Probe, having survived its closest encounter so far with the sun, has sent back a spectacular trove of data on its corona, the super hot outer edge of its atmosphere, according to scientists. The car-sized probe, launched in August last year, will come within some 4 million miles or 6 million kilometers of the sun's surface during a series of flybys at other distances and trajectories over 7 years. It's hoped that it will allow a better understanding of the solar, wind, and electromagnetic storms which can cause chaos on Earth by knocking out the power grid. Now, one puzzle concerns the corona itself, which at 1 million degrees is many times hotter than the sun's surface at 6,000 degrees Celsius, when it would normally be expected to cool further from the heat source. Now, scientists were also surprised by what they found about the acceleration of the solar wind, the outward stream of protons, electrons, and other particles emanating from the sun. Justin Casper, a professor of climate and space sciences and engineering at the University of Michigan, said, quote, "To our great surprise, as we neared the sun, we've already detected large rotational flows, 10 to 20 times greater than what standard models of the sun predict." Stuart Bale, professor of physics at the University of California, Berkeley, recalled that a major space weather event in 1859 blew out telegraph networks on Earth, and one in 1972 set off U.S. naval mines in North Vietnam. Now, with society now even more dependent on sophisticated technology, Bale said, quote, "Big disturbances from the sun are potentially a very serious thing." He said, quote, "If we could predict space weather, we could shut down or isolate parts of the power grid or shut down satellite systems that might be vulnerable." Snow didn't slow down the giving of donations when volunteers from the Iglesia Ni Cristo or Church of Christ gave out donations or food to the North York Harvest Food Bank in Ontario, Canada. Here's Angela Milano for the report.
Saturdays are typically a non-working day for Canadians. Nevertheless, any day is a good day to give, share, and help those who are in need. Members of the Church of Christ in Greater Toronto Area, in behalf of the Felix Y. Manalo Foundation, gathered together Saturday to bring food donations to the North York Harvest Food Bank in North York, Ontario, Canada. This drive was a result of a month-long campaign by members of the Church of Christ, led by their district supervising minister, Glendo Baitan. Members gathered 100 boxes of food and multiple sacks of rice to be donated to those who are in need in the city of Toronto. North York Harvest Food Bank's Director of Development and Marketing, Mr. Henry Chu, accepted the donations and gave them an overview of how food banks operate and how the food is organized and distributed.
With North York Harvest Food Bank, I'm the Director of Development and Marketing. We're just super excited, so glad to see the congregation on behalf of Felix Y. Manelo Foundation bringing in so much food, especially as we're getting into the holiday season. The food is so much needed for the 24,000 members in the community that require food assistance. Normally we open on Monday to Friday, but especially our warehouse, but Felix Y. Manelo Foundation has been a great supporter of ours for quite a few years. It only makes sense for us to just be here to not only accept the food on behalf of our clients, but want to say a thank you to those who participated in this food drive. North York Harvest Food Bank is not government funded, so we rely solely on the community support, whether it's money, whether it's food. It's the donations that we bring in that we can distribute to our network of 40 agencies across the northern Toronto area. And as mentioned last year, we served about 24,000 people.
This is to further educate the community on what happens after a donation has been made to further encourage others to do the same. It is truly important and beneficial for nonprofit organizations like the Church of Christ Felix Y. Manelo Foundation and the North York Harvest Food Bank to maintain good relationships as they continue to keep working together in reaching out to those in need.
Support from Felix Y. Manelo Foundation really serves three purposes. Number one, you're helping us last year raise some funds, and every year you raise food. As a non-funded agency, knowing that there is an organization year in and year out, there's some support coming, it's so huge in our planning. And of course, the money and food actually gets to our clients, so that's number two. That's equally important. But the third thing is allowing the community to understand that food bank clients require your support. And that message in terms of spreading to the community and letting people know that, hey, there are people out there, they work hard, but because of unfortunate circumstances that they require to come to a food bank for emergency food needs, there are other people that actually cares and provide support. I think that is so important. On behalf of North York Harvest Food Bank and the 24,000 people that we serve, I want to give my sincere thank you to Church of Christ Felix Y. Manelo Foundation for your ongoing support, which is so important, so valued, and so appreciated. Thank you.
From Toronto, Canada, this is Angela Milano for Eagle News.
And the news continues here in Eagle News. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Watch your favorite Net25 shows on OSN channel 725, same day as the Philippines.
Net25 is now available on OSN, the largest entertainment network in the Middle East and North Africa.
Watch your favorite Net25 shows live
and on demand anytime, anywhere on
any mobile device on OSN Play.
Chinese telecoms giant Huawei said it has petitioned a U.S. court to overturn a ban that prevents carriers in rural America from buying the firm's equipment by tapping an $8.5 billion federal fund. Huawei's petition said the ban imposed last month against the company and its Chinese rival ZTE on national security grounds failed to substantiate claims that Huawei was a threat and was a violation of due process and thus unlawful. Take a listen.
Join us. This morning, Huawei has filed a petition to overturn an unlawful order by the FCC in the U.S. The FCC claims that Huawei is a security threat, but the FCC chairman, Ajit Pai, has not provided any evidence. This is a common trend in Washington these days. Huawei is a Chinese company. That's his only excuse. The fact is, banning a company like Huawei just because we studied in China, this does not solve any cybersecurity challenges. Many people and small business in rural America do not have mobile network access. This decision will harm their interests. Huawei also submitted 21 rounds of detailed comments explaining how the order will harm people and business in remote areas. The FCC ignored all of them.
The petition to a U.S. appeals court follows a lawsuit filed by Huawei in March that declared a 2019 U.S. defense bill unconstitutional, forbidding government agencies from buying its equipment, services, or working with third parties that are Huawei customers. The U.S. campaign against Huawei is motivated by fears in Washington that the company is a potential security threat due to the background of its founder and CEO, Ren Zhengfei, a former Chinese army engineer. President Trump moved in May to block American companies from doing business with Huawei, which U.S. officials accuse of violating U.S. sanctions on Iran. But President Trump has offered a series of temporary reprieves for Huawei to allow service providers covering remote rural areas time to comply with the ban. Our ABC correspondent EJ in Washington, D.C. goes to FIBA and tells us what the Basketball Association is all about. EJ.
LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, Stephen Curry, and hundreds of professional basketball players all have something in common before they became big guns in the NBA. They all started young. They were all guided and honed by basketball programs that saw them develop from lanky 9-year-olds to bulky NBA greats. That is the goal of the Phil-Am Youth Basketball Association, aka FIBA, ever since it started its program over 10 years ago.
FIBA has been started since 2007. So it was started with a group of families who want to get together and get their kids play basketball. And we've been running for like probably like 13 years now. And we had, the community had a platform for the kids to get their kids developed in the sports of basketball. Actually, from start FIBA, we have kids who've been in our program, and through the years to get developed, they were able to play competitive basketball in middle school, high school, and some of them now are playing college basketball.
Coaching children is a little bit more challenging. You have to be more patient. You have to be more precise. And you have to simplify things when you teach them things for them to understand.
And how do you teach them about sportsmanship?
I base it always on life and church and life actually. I tell them that you cannot be a sore loser. You have to accept it. Whatever you feel in a game, win or lose, you have to be gracious about it, and you have to be thankful. And you just work hard the next time, and do better. I tell them that to just have fun. I just want them to love the game. I don't put pressure on them. I just want them to shoot, and it doesn't matter to me if they don't make it or not. As long as they love the game, they learn how to love the game, they become passionate about it, then we're good.
Why is it that you like basketball?
Because my dad played it with me a lot, and we play it all the time since I was young. I get to have fun with my friends, and we can all play together as a team. When we play together, it's like we have fun, and
I like playing basketball because it's an exercise and you don't sit down just on your electronics. It makes my days more interesting because it's like a win or lose situation, but it's not that. It doesn't matter if you win or lose. It's because you just have to have fun. It makes me feel like it's awesome because you work as a teammate to try to win. I like basketball because it develops like more, strength, and it also like helps you create better friendships with other people. I get to know them better and learn more about them. And I could say that they did really well, and I would love having more future games with them.
Challenges, well, most of the time they don't want to practice. So you got to tell them, eat the right way, drink milk, don't drink soda and all that. That's very challenging. You know, sleeping on time. So you got to put it in their mind and heart that these are important things for them to accomplish what they want as they grow up.
It builds character, and it helps them interact with their peers better, gives them confidence, and most of all, physical well-being.
Because it makes me exercise.
How do you play basketball? Can you show me? How do you dribble the basketball? All right. Thank you, bud. Give me a high five. With parents and an organization supporting the Phil-Am community's love for basketball, I wouldn't be surprised if one of these players make it to the big leagues. From the championship games of Phil-Am Youth Basketball Association in Alexandria, Virginia, where everybody plays and everybody wins, I am EJ Gonzalez, 1 with 25.
Thank you, EJ. To Canada now, where contestants of Miss Vancouver 2019 share what is important to them. Friend Del Fejeran reports.
Being directly involved with a pageant affords you an experience of challenges, inspiring moments, and empowerment. How many lives evolved during the making of Miss Vancouver, and how these experiences impact the everyday living of the people here in Vancouver.
Pageants expose inner and outer beauty on the catwalk through talent and through words expressing their compassion towards the community. Their confidence exudes from a core of passion that lifts one over any hurdle and challenge. A pair of event organizers give us a glimpse of one of the challenges they encountered and triumphed over in the making of Miss Vancouver 2019.
As a training coordinator, some challenges I faced was just accommodating to multiple schedules. Everybody has their own work and school life, so it's hard to balance, but just the effort of trying to collaborate as a whole, we made it work.
So the one challenge that comes to mind is the fact that I am a business owner and I run a school, so balancing time in the business and also organizing a pageant, it can be quite challenging, but I think if you budget your time and don't procrastinate, you'll be fine.
Challenges will come and go, and when they come, what could we expect?
Challenges breed success. So I think that it's really important to understand that there will be obstacles in anything that you do. Just know that there is always light at the end of the tunnel.
Keeping this in mind is to feel the perseverance through any circumstance and enjoy and gain from each moment as it happens. While others dream of material gain, winners of Miss Vancouver 2019 are empowered to not only reign, but to use their platform in making a difference in the community.
Improvement for the homeless people. There are so many people on the streets and they deserve to have some shelter.
People can actually open their eyes that young parents are not just because they got lost in life, they got skipped steps in their life, but it doesn't mean that they're a failure, and they could keep proving to every single one of people out there that they can be so much better than what they are being told.
I'm able to be more understanding. I think that's very important, to have an understanding and also respect for other people in the community.
Facing challenges transform into inspiring moments and is an experience we all have. Winners of Miss Vancouver 2019 choose to utilize their experiences, knowledge, and passion by paying it forward to help those around them.
From Vancouver, Canada, I'm Frendel Fejeran, Eagle News, 1 with 25.
And that's the news for tonight. I'm Alma Angeles. Join us online and here again tomorrow evening. From all of us here at Eagle News, always 1 with 25.
susunod na programa ay rated PG. Ito ay nangangailangan ng patnubay at gabay ng magulang para sa mga batang manonood.
Bata pa lang po ako, pangarap ko na po maging singer. Sumali na po ako sa iba't ibang singing contest. Minsan panalo, minsan talo. Parang buhay ko lang, minsan masaya, minsan malungkot. Pero tulad ng isang kanta, maiksi man, pero may kabuluhan.
Tubong San Manuel, Isabela, si kapatid na Evelyn Pacelo. Pangatlo siya sa 6 na magkakapatid. Sa 6 na magkakapatid ay kakaiba ang kondisyon ni kapatid na Evelyn.
Ang kalagayan ko po is isa po ako sa napapabilang na dwarfism na ano po, yung dito po is normal. Tapos dito po is parang hindi po siya na-develop. Yung parang sabi po nung doktor, yung joint, yung paglaki po ng ano, hindi po siya totally na-develop. Nag-stop po siya. Kaya po maliit lang po siya. Hindi po masabi nung doktor, marami daw po kasing instances, maraming mga kailangan daw po talaga siyang pag-aralan na mabuti. Pero normally daw po, kaya po minsan naggaganon po, is parang yung kulang po sa buwan na pinanganak. Grade 1 pa lang po ako, alam ko na ano po na iba ako. Kasi po, yung sa paglalakad, hindi po kasi ako nakakapagpantalon. Short lang po. So, pag may mga PE po kami, dapat yung malawang po. Eh, yung mga classmate ko po, nakikita ko nakakapantalon. Kaya po, iba ako. Sinearch ko po kung hereditary po yung kalagayan ko. Pero lahat po ng mga kamag-anak ko sa mga ninuninuan, wala po talaga eh. Parang inborn lang po.
Dahil sa kalagayan niyang ito, ay nagkaroon siya ng iba't ibang mapapait na karanasan.
Nung elementary po ako, sa tuwing papasok po ako, meron pong instances na babatuhin ako. Na freak. Yung iba po, parang ganun po. Parang you're not belong here. Parang ganun po. Pero may mga kaibigan din po ako na nagtatanggol sa akin, yung mga teachers. Pero nung high school pa po ako, ganun din po. May mga, hindi po talaga maiiwasan sa mundo. Ibabaw yung may kahit naman po mga normal people na didiscriminate din po. Alam mo po yung tingin pa lang, alam mong kinukutsa ka na. Ganun po. Na-judge ka na kahit sa tingin pa lang. Ganun po. Siyempre po, naramdaman ko po yun sobrang parang na-outcast po. Yung parang ayaw mo nang pumasok. Yung parang ayaw mo nang lumabas. Parang ganun po.
Sa kabila ng kanyang kalagayan ay hindi siya napigilan nito na mangarap.
Pangarap ko pong maging singer po. Nung nag-aaral po ako ng elementary, mahilig po kaming makisali sa mga contest, mga group po na singing contest.
Bata pa lamang ay ilang beses na rin nagwagi si kapatid na Evelyn sa mga paligsahan sa pagkanta.
Nasa grade 2 po, nanalo po ako sa school singing contest po. Ang isang malaking patimpalak po na nasalihan ko na ay yung regional na contest po sa probinsya noon. Dinayo po kami ng isang major na TV broadcast. Tapos, yun po, parang feature po nila ako. Tapos po, doon na po, nag-start na po doon na mas parang lumawak yung pagkanta, ganun po. Hanggang sa nag-high school po, nagpatuloy po rin po sa pagkanta, sa mga singing contest. Pero minsan po, hindi naman po laging nananalo. Kasi po mas marami talagang mas magagaling talaga. Ang saya-saya po kasi pag kumakanta ka, tapos may nakaka-appreciate po.
Hindi lamang ang pagkanta ang pinagkakaabalahan ni kapatid na Evelyn.
Pagluluto, traveling po. Tapos nagsusulat po ng mga short stories. Ay karaniwan po na niluluto ko po ay yung igado, mga pasta po, yung adobo po, mga pakbet po na Ilocano. Sa traveling naman po, pinakamalayo ko na pong napuntahan is Thailand. Tour po kami doon. Kasama ko po yung pinsan ko.